The Truth Girls.
Hi everyone. Well, yesterday I posted a video about coming out of the closet about the fact that my son has certain problems, possibly autism spectrum disorder according to his doctor, like very mildly on the spectrum. Well, first of all, I want to thank all of you for your support and for your prayers. I really appreciate that a lot. And I just want to respond to a few of the things that some of you said. So let's see, where should I start? Well, first of all, I mentioned that I was looking to get him diagnosed, and a lot of you were like, what? Why would you want to do that? You don't want to label him. And when I mentioned that, I thought that he has a genuine, I don't like to use the word disorder, but some kind of a problem. A lot of you were like, why do you want to label him? He's just a free thinker, or he's just this, or he's just that, he's just quirky. So I just want to clear some things up. No, I don't have a problem with him being different and quirky. I don't want him to fit into a mold or be like everyone else and be good sheeple. It's not about that at all. It's about these issues that he has are very real, and they're interfering with his functioning on a daily level, like in all areas of his life, and it's actually making him pretty miserable. Sorry, Facebook's open. Although he does have good days. Some days are very good. Some days are very rough for him and for me. Sometimes he has a very good morning and then it deteriorates. And I just feel that these problems that he has are holding him back from really enjoying himself, enjoying his life, and down the road are going to continue to do that and hold him back from living up to his potential. So I'd like to get them sorted out. Now, why would I want to get him diagnosed? I have a little list here. There is a purpose to getting someone diagnosed. And I know that a lot of you are like, what? Psychiatry, it's a total hoax, and the DSM is a crock. And you know what? I actually feel that way about a lot of it too. The psychiatrists, they can say, yes, you have a problem, but they're really just identifying it by the symptoms. They're not figuring out what is underneath. Well, you're ADHD because you're lacking a certain chemical, so here's some Ritalin. But see, to me, that is not a solution at all. I mean, I know it works for some people, but it's really like a Band-Aid solution, because more likely there are some things that you got to look deeper about. What is causing this imbalance in the body that is causing this disorder? And I do believe that, yes, ADHD is a real disorder. I mean, there are some people who are they're just different. It's a different way of thinking, and they're mislabeled as ADHD. But there are some people who really, really struggle. Like some kids, it makes their lives very difficult. It makes it hard for them to get through a day, to have friends, to do school, to do really anything. And they do suffer from it. And there is something going on with them. I mean, a recent study showed that over 60% of kids who have ADHD really have food intolerances, and also it can be reactions to things like food color. When you correct the food, then the symptoms go away. So see, there is a problem, but the solution isn't necessarily Ritalin, right? That's probably the worst solution. Anyway, so why would you want a diagnosis? Well, first of all, to narrow down the problem. I mean, like there's a lot of overlap between some of these things: ADHD, sensory processing disorder, autism spectrum disorders. There's overlap. I mean, some kids who are like on the autism spectrum will have hyperactivity. A lot of them have sensory issues, but a kid who has sensory issues but not other ones, say on the autism spectrum, probably just has more like a disorder that centers around difficulties with sensory processing. And once you narrow it down, well, then you can start to identify the biological causes of these symptoms. And the next thing you'd want to do is start to begin with appropriate biomedical interventions to address these underlying medical or biological problems. Do some tests. Find out, maybe they have a chronic strep infection, and that can cause very specific, very serious problems. Or they could have food intolerances, or they could have parasites. And there are a lot of things: lead toxicity, mercury, aluminum, lots of things, and each thing requires a very specific intervention. Also, the benefit of having a diagnosis is it will allow you to access special educational services. Like right now, my son is not doing very well in a regular class. And it's not just because he's a free thinker and all that. I mean, he really has some issues. And it's more than his teacher can handle a lot of the time. Sometimes kids who have these kinds of problems, well, they have special needs. They have special needs on an educational level, and things need to go more at their pace. They're not going to go so well at the pace of the group. If you stick them in a mainstream class and you just expect them to go to pace of the group, the problem is it's not going to go well, and they're going to get very negative feelings towards education and probably develop a low self-esteem, and maybe get really turned off of school and feel bad about themselves. And that's what we want to avoid. But you can't get access to personalized services unless you have a diagnosis or you're on a waiting list. And the other thing is access to therapies, such as for a sensory issue, there is sensory integration therapy. And by the way, if you're wondering what his problems are, well, he has very obvious sensory issues. I mean, if you look at sensory processing disorder, all except one of those symptoms he has very much. The reason the doctor thought it was also maybe on autism spectrum, it had to do with certain other things that he does, the way that he plays. Like I try to do arts and crafts with him, and he wouldn't do it. He'd like line things up around the edge, stuff like that. He needs to have very rigid routines that are basically like bordering on rituals. He also becomes rigidly fixated on things to the point where it becomes a problem. He also has some problems on a social level. He doesn't seem to pick up social cues very well. He doesn't respond very much at all to praise or disapproval or other people's emotions. And so this can cause problems for him. Now, what is the goal of all this? Well, the goal to me is a complete recovery. It's not to label your kid or to medicate him. That medicating him is the absolute last goal. I would never medicate him. The last thing we want to do is drug him up. We like him the way he is. We actually think he's really cool. We like the fact that he's different. We think he's awesome. But we want to make this work for him and not work against him. So the thing with ADHD, sensory processing disorder, and autism spectrum disorder, the bottom line is that our kids are not well. I mean, whether it's this diagnosis or that or another one, it's just to narrow it down so you know how to help them. But the bottom line is that our kids aren't well. Like, there's something really going on. Our kids are poisoned. There's something very much interfering with their body's processes. I think my son has a lot of difficulty detoxifying. I think that's one of his problems. And the big problem, I think, is that these are regarded as psychiatric problems, and then they try to medicate psychiatrically or just give behavioral therapy and stuff. But what we really need to do is change the perceptions about ADHD, sensory processing disorder, and autism spectrum disorder, so that people, but especially the medical community, come to recognize these as medical problems with underlying biological causes that need to be addressed. Because right now, the only way you can get that done, by and large, is to go to an integrative medicine doctor or a DAN doctor or a doctor who's very progressive. These are medical problems with psychiatric symptoms, and they do respond to treatment, and the kids can recover. And so things need to change. The medical community needs to get with it, because our kids deserve recovery, and not just some label and some medication. They deserve recovery. So I just wanted to explain to you why I would want a diagnosis. It's for very practical, specific purposes. And I think my son can, totally recover and just be his quirky, fun self, yet be able to function and not be miserable. That's my goal. That's what I want. I just want him to be healthy and happy. So thanks again for your support. And, leave me your comments if you want to share any resources. And, well, thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.